Hello and welcome back to the Unreal walkthrough. We are on One Punch Eco's Harrop Village. What annoys me is the lack of detail in these passage maps. I really can't rate/review this map because it has so little detail. It's just a village and a pathway to the ship. I mean, if campaign much, so it's just 7 bullets and Ziddy go to pack so much into their maps, why can't the original Unreal? Well, maybe your argument is that the newer campaigns are large because hard drive space and computer performance are now better. But Half-Life came out only a few months after Unreal, and its levels didn't have passage maps, if you will. I mean, maybe that some of their levels lacked detail, but not to this extent. Here you've got a map that any good veteran mapper can replicate in less than about an hour, really. So I'm going to go ahead and skip around because there's not much to look at. Make sure you go up the alley Grease, because he will show you a secret, which leads to one of my favorite weapons out of the original Real Stash, the Flat Cannon. This thing really rips up Scar and Mercenaries, and pretty much everything else for the most part. The only problem is every so often a projectile will ricochet, jump around into your personal space. By the way, to get into that cave, just press the secret button behind the grave on the right, all the way in the back. By the way, to get into that cave, just press the secret button behind the grave on the right, all the way in the back. now we come upon the Tanu Underground by Enox. It's a little introductory level for the crash-landed mercenary ship. As much as it looks a bit high-tech, since the music is technotic and the architecture implies that the area should be high-tech, it's really not, which disappoints me. There seems to be a commonality in real maps. These group of maps are grungy or dark or simply worn out. I'm not saying that you can't have that. I'm saying that you should make a habit of it, because players like to see something new. Some of the groups of maps that are exceptions to this are the sky levels, the Cheeseburger Temple, and most of the outside world maps. Having said that, Enox does try to give the Tanu map group its own personality with the atmosphere of itself. The gameplay is nothing too great, but it's not bad at all. As for story implementation, well, I do see some implementation of information regarding Nepali and whatnot, so that's an okay. Enox does make some effort for the architecture not to be plain, but I think that it would have been much more interesting to create a high-tech, clean environment instead of an industrial, worn-down environment. So I am giving Atmosphere 4 conceptual grandness a 2, because I think players will agree that hallways and hallways and hallways aren't going to really give awe to the map. Gameplay of 4, visual impact a 2. But I wanted to give it a 3. It's just I think the reputation of this grungy atmosphere is really interesting. Maybe it's just that I've been playing Unreal for so long now that I'm not surprised by these maps, but it just seems like even if I was back, you know, a decade ago, I would have still thought that to be peculiar. In story implementation, I give it a 3 because it does try to detail some background behind the spaceship, Tanu. So, yeah, an overall rating of 3.0. Which means it's not the best, but it's pretty good. So as I do reviews, some of you might be thinking, well, what do you mean conceptual grandness, or what is conceptual grandness? Now this term is sort of a more Unreal-specific term, not the concept itself, but the term. And that's only because the skilled Unreal mapping communities such as UnrealSP.org consider it in their critical reviews, and I think that the term itself was made up by Hellscrag, but he does make a good point in his article about it. You see, I've also been mapping for about 4 or 5 years, and see, it kind of took me 2 or 3 years to really grasp what this concept is, how to implement it in a map. I actually wrote a definition down on my level design website, which unfortunately crashed because of some SQL error or something like that. Anyway, back on topic, I would define conceptual grandness, and this is a rough definition, as the structural awe of a map, not only through scale, but through creativity. It's a concept that takes into consideration visual scale, so to speak, of a map, rather than just the physical scale, the physical size of it. For example, take a map from Unreal Tournament, let's see. A good one would definitely be CTF Dreary. I mean, this map is literally a map that focuses on cramped pathways. Sure, it has great detail, but when you picture this in your head, are you really awed by something like that? It's just a bunch of apparently rusty or maybe worn down hallways and rooms, nothing very inspiring there. And I guess that's the magic word here, inspiring. If it's not in the least bit inspiring, or awing, I should say, does it really consider conceptual grandness? If you'd like a few more examples, consider, for example, the Sunspire Bluff Ever Smoking, whose name is even a bit grand, and the Nally Castle. Those are some examples from the original Unreal. And I think some great level designers that hardly failed to implement conceptual grandness in their maps are people like, for example, Aurances or Misha the Sled Dog for the most part. It's really hard to think of consistency in mappers because that's sort of hard to do, at least in conceptual grandness. Grayson Edge has a couple of good ones. If you want to see an example of how to keep conceptual grandness in the midst of a predictably cramped industrial zone or something like that, check out the campaign Project Zeno first day. That's a good one. And really, you could go to Unreal SP Dome. It's a great site to go to, not only for mappers, but for players. You know, there's a ton of campaigns there for Unreal that you can play. And some of them, I'd argue, some of them, especially in gameplay, for example, 7 Bullets, are much more challenging and entertaining when it comes to, you know, combat. Of course, and I say that's not necessarily because it is better than Unreal. It's because it's later, so therefore the gameplay concepts are more developed. See, and Unreal, which was released in 1998, that's sort of a while before gameplay combat was really getting to develop, especially the kind of combat in Unreal, where it's projectiles and dodging tactics, things like that. So now you have campaigns like Operation Polly and Zydia Gold, all those things, where the gameplay is definitely much more developed. And I think this is partly because of the fact that they looked at Unreal and saw what's missing out of the gameplay. And again, I say not because the mappers in Unreal are not good, but because it was still a developing concept gameplay back then. By the way, even though I'm trying to criticize, I suppose you could say, Unreal, I still think it's probably the best series of this decade and of past decade, with the exception of Unreal Tournament 3, which basically, in my opinion, killed the entire legacy. I mean, okay, so when you compare the Unreal Legacy to Unreal Tournament 3, it's almost like it. Unreal Tournament 3, sure, it has tries to adapt the storyline, but it doesn't really adapt. It doesn't do it very well. In fact, I'd rather have the Unreal Tournament 3 game labeled as something else. It should not be called Unreal Tournament because it isn't Unreal Tournament. Sure, it has similar game types and similar weapons, but I mean, there are similar game types and similar weapons in other games. That doesn't make it Unreal. What made it Unreal is the way that it was portrayed, the atmosphere, and the, I suppose, the characters, all this that didn't really change until Unreal Tournament 3. When you look at Unreal Tournament 3, really, it looks more like a Gears of War deathmatch game rather than Unreal Tournament. Where's the Scar, for example? Where's the tournament? Where's Zan Krieger? Things like that. I'm sure that the combat in Unreal Tournament 3 is fine, and the bot AI is tremendously improved, but it's still missing that Unreal aura, that feeling that everyone used to have in Unreal Tournament. Even in the new Unreal Tournament 2004, still had that sense of it being Unreal rather than just a completely different game. And I think that's partly because of the fact that Unreal Tournament 3 was developed by people like Cliff Bleszinski. I don't think he was involved in it, at least as much. And I think had the original Unreal team, or for example Unreal Tournament team, been working on that game, Epic would not have allowed their game legacy to die. And not that it, of course not that it's dead, but you know, they haven't really done anything with Unreal name for what, 4 years now. So and stay down. After killing that merc, you'll soon find a dispersion pistol power-up if you go to the top floor. This will give you a nice green projectile and increase the damage of the projectile. The only problem is that the more upgrades you get, the more ammo this weapon will take per shot, although it is fairly efficient. In the end, you can kill the smaller monsters with 1 or 2 shots. From here, I will speed it up. The next map is Nork's Elbow, and it's another passage map. Before you cross the bridge, by the way, there is a secret to the left of the bridge underwater. That's it for part 3. Thanks for watching.